Hello and welcome to my video edit, straight to the point. Let's get straight to the point. Recently, the Kalangut MLA in Goa, Michael Lobo, made a very interesting statement about Goa's tourism. He said that tourist footfalls in Goa are low in 2025 because the massive EDM festival Sunburn has moved out of Goa. Mark these words. Goa is getting less tourists all over Goa because people have stopped coming to watch Sunburn because Sunburn has moved out of Goa. Now, on the surface, this might sound like a throwaway political comment, but buried inside is a very deep, dark, harsh truth. This is a very honest and a very disturbing diagnosis of Goa's tourism. Because if the presence or absence of the Sunburn Festival can determine Goa's tourism, then something is very fundamentally wrong with Goa's tourism and our expectations from it. It means that Goa is no longer a tourist destination. It is an event-based destination. People are not coming to Goa for the sake of Goa. People are coming to Goa for some of these large events, and that too in one pocket of Goa. Now, why is this a problem? No, this is actually a problem because it means that Goa's serene coastline, its way of life, its music, its people, its friendliness, its warmth, the very reasons that drew the world to Goa are no longer present, and everything depends on just one festival. It also means that one congested festival that was going on in Goa for so many years was ultimately determining the number game of Goa's tourism. And that is something I find very deeply uncomfortable. Because Goa today is not managed by tourism. It is this brand of tourism which is managing Goa. Think about this. Success is no longer determined, tourism success, that is sustainability, quality of life, visitor experience. It is determined by numbers, crude footfalls, and that too for one particular festival. It depends on the number of bodies in Goa. It depends on the number of big nights. It depends on the number of spectacles. Even if these spectacles and these big events, they overwhelm our infrastructure, ultimately box the locals into one corner where they don't even know what their village has become. They're not even aware whether they belong here. Irrespective of whether these huge spectacle events stretch policing, affect our groundwater, affect our garbage, these no longer matter. Just footfalls matter. 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, 7 million, as if that is the barometer for success. This is a very far cry from the time in the 80s and 90s, and of course earlier, when Goa itself was a draw, when people came to all parts of Goa, especially coastal Goa, across North Goa, across Central Goa, beautiful beaches of South Goa. People used to come, have real relationships with the locals. Locals welcomed them, businesses thrived. The locals were happy. The shacks did business. Everybody was happy. Let us now step back from this politics and look at basic data, which will make this discussion even better. Now, if you look at Sunburn and some data around it, let's look at this. Now, before Sunburn came, let's look at 2010. I've pulled up some data here. Tourism grew steadily. Okay, families came for long holidays, they came for long weekends. Foreign charters came and they stayed for months. You ask the important veterans of the foreign charter business. They were happy. Fixed charters came, rooms were allotted and blocked in hotels. They stayed for a long time. Everybody made money. Everybody was happy. Tourism was, of course, seasonal. But during that season, it was spread out, it was absorbed, and the benefits were equally felt all over Goa without actually stretching Goa and its resources. More importantly, Tourists from outside did not dominate Goa. They came, they enjoyed, they absorbed, went back. There was no pag in there. Now, Sunburn began initially in 2007-8. That was the time when Sunburn first came in. For almost a decade, it was run as a festival, not as a grand magnet to draw tourists. It did not dictate Goa's global image. Goa's tourism was not known because of one Sunburn. It did not decide any tourism policy. It did not determine our footfall numbers. And that is important. That Sunburn came, but Sunburn did not dominate. In 2015, this whole curve began to dominate between 2015 and 2017. And interestingly, that is the time when Goa's tourism footfalls also increased, which justifies Michael Lobo's comment as far as this raw statistics are concerned. The tourist numbers jumped from 5.3 million to 7.8 million during this time, 15 to 17. What changed? All this changed. Footfalls changed. Infrastructure did not change. Carrying capacity did not change. Tourism governance did not change. What changed was the way Goa was branded and the behavior of tourists. Sunburn was scaled up internationally. It became massive. Goa began to be sold not for its destination, but only as a party capital, drawing a particular kind of crowd only. From destination-based tourism, it became one event-led tourism. And that is what Michael Lobo is talking about and even lamenting the absence of Sunburn. The behavioral shift in Sunburn, the behavioral shift in the way tourism is seen and absorbed has been normalized now. Sunburn became the new normal, and the absence of Sunburn started to hurt. That is where the tragedy of Goa's tourism lies. What happened? People came only for that period, short stays, high intensity, a different profile of very young transient visitors, hyper concentration in only that northern coastal belt. So tourism stopped being spread across the length and breadth of Goa. And the entire event got compressed in one geographical area that completely broke systems. Around 2018-19, before COVID, interestingly, the tourism pattern flattened around 7 million and 8 million. Growth slowed, but it tapered. It did not dip, but it reached a scale. But around that time, something else also happened. Noise pollution and complaints, police incidents, local resentment, environmental stress. All this was the accumulated fallout of all that was happening. And in one simple phrase, this is clearly capacity saturation. Goa's capacities, especially in that belt, was saturated, added pressure, it depleted value. And that is where the problem lied. Of course, COVID came after that. Everything was shut down. Tourism collapsed. Festival stopped. And of course, the world closed down. But during that time, the governance or the government of the day did not sit down and actually think about what we need for tourism. There were no debate on limits, no discussion on carrying capacity, no redesign of tourism at that point of time. They just wanted the old model to restart. Event-based tourism, Sunburn will come, COVID will finish, people will come, numbers will go up, we are very happy. Now, between 2021 and 2023, there was a revival of volume. There was no revival of wisdom. Nobody learned lessons. Tourism came roaring back, quote unquote, because the footfalls went up. In 2023, Goa is back to its pre-COVID numbers. But tourism is no longer seasonal. It's now become continuous. Work from home people, hordes of people coming from Delhi and working remotely, properties being bought, Goa being used as a second home. But the Sunburn festival for that draw in the month of December became very huge. It almost as if without Sunburn, Goa would get no tourists. And that is what we are seeing today. But then throughout the year, things replicating Sunburn kept on happening. Villa parties became important. Smaller festivals dominated. Influencers came and decided what the nature of tourism was. So Sunburn actually became a mindset more than the festival. Everything became like Sunburnish as one may call it. In 2024, record footfalls happened. Record. Goa crossed 10.4 million tourists. But what kind of tourists came here? Were these tourists benefiting the economy? Were these tourists actually leading to more money coming into the local sector? Were they consuming Goa economically? What were they leaving back? Or were they coming in bus loads and cooking on the streets, littering on the streets, defecating on the streets? And this is the kind of tourism that came here. It outstretched our police forces, no doubt. Our infrastructure got collapsed. Communities were outnumbered in their own village with hordes and hordes of tourists moving around with no pattern, no infrastructure. And then this concentration became huge, and Goa failed. Goa's tourism failed. So when the Kalangut MLA says tourism footfalls are down because Sunburn is not there, he's not necessarily praising Sunburn. We don't know whether he is or not, but we don't see it as a praise. He's admitting the dependency of Goa's tourism on a festival like this. It has to be seen like this. That MLA saying that without Sunburn we are lost. We don't have tourists. This admission of dependency is what is saddening and what is also dangerous. He's admitting that Goa's tourism identity has narrowed. He's admitting that one event props up numbers. He's admitting that without this spectacle, the Goa model suffers. This is not success. This is absolutely a symbol of how fragile Goa has become. In 2025, of course, we saw that there was something which could be called fatigue. Sunburn had gone away. Tourists had increasingly started saying negative things about Goa. Some of it genuine, some of it maybe exaggerated. But the taxi problem, the transport problem, the harassment that they faced in front of by taxi operators, violence that started happening, that became news. Of course, there were incidents of Goans also being victim of tourist outbursts, of violence perpetrated by tourists as well. It happened both sides. But at the end of the day, it was a very ugly picture. Also, the deeper truth that Sunburn actually did not ruin Goa. But Sunburn, ultimately, the dependence on Sunburn revealed what Goa has become. That it has failed to expand and failed to attract people for the love of Goa. For the love of Goa, what once was. The tourism minister, Rohan Kaunte, of course, has spoken a lot of regenerative tourism. He's spoken of reviving tourism. He's spoken of taking tourism into the hinterland, and these are good signs. Undoubtedly, these are good signs, but these have to be implemented. And the success of these efforts will determine whether Goa can be reset and taken back to the days when people used to come only for his destination. Homestays, regenerative tourism, use the hinterlands well, spread it out, and let people who really love Goa come here. We wish that these kind of steps bring about success. And success will happen only if these steps are ultimately implemented. It will not happen if you are lamenting about Sunburn. One day, Sunburn will move on. We knew, and it has moved on. All these festivals come and go. But the tourism culture that Sunburn normalized still remains, and that is dangerous. The tourism culture has to be reset. Goa and Goans have to dismantle it. We have to regenerate tourism. Regenerative tourism is the answer, but are we doing it? That is the question. We have to do it. That is the answer. Until then, MLAs will keep on chasing footfalls. But then, if you chase footfalls, you will chase Goa out of its own self. And that is very, very dangerous. And that is the real story. This deserves to be heard. The danger of depending on one festival deserves to be understood quietly, carefully, and honestly. Thank you so much for listening.